very, very warm welcome to you. You're listening to The Music Business Buddy with me, jonnyamos, podcasting out of Birmingham, England. It's good to be here with you. I'm the author of the book, The Music Business for Music Creators. I'm also a music creator with credits on a variety of major and indie labels as a writer or producer, sometimes both. I'm also a lecturer in music creation and in music business. Now, wherever you are, whatever you do, please consider yourself welcome to this podcast and to a part of this community. I'm here to try and educate and inspire music creators from all over the world in their quest to achieving their goals by gaining a greater understanding of the business behind music. Okay, so the focus of this podcast today is being an artist manager. And truthfully, the best way of understanding being an artist manager is to talk to an artist manager, and a very, very good one at that. So allow me to introduce you to Denise Beighton from Upside UK. Upside UK are a bespoke management and record company and a consultancy company. They consult for a lot of major labels, but they also manage Karen Harding, Danny Dearden, Moya, Future Kings, Gold 88, Pillows and many more. Denise is, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, a veteran of the music industry and a lovely, lovely and hilarious person. So let's get this rolling. The first thing I asked to Denise is kind of, how she got into management, because she's been in the business for quite a long time. But, she didn't start out as a manager, and most managers don't start out as a manager. I mean, some do, right? You've got some really good, young, emerging, up-and-coming managers these days. But generally speaking, it's not a role of a younger person. So, I wanted to ask Denise, how she got started in the music industry. What were her first kind of steps into the industry? What did that look like, and where did she go from there? And this is what she said.
Originally, I started at RCA in the early 80s, and Bucks Fizz had just won the Eurovision. And that was in the days where we had a chance in Eurovision, and they just won. And basically, they couldn't cope with the demand for the record. So they brought in part-time temps, which I was one of them, doing telesales. And then what started just as a part-time temporary job ended up being a 40-odd year career, which was amazing. And I mean, back then, it was based in West Brom, the old RCA depot. And they had the warehouse with all the record stock on the downstairs, and then all the offices, the sales office, the credit department, etc. We were all upstairs. And so it used to be like, it was quite a fun place to work. And if you'd have artists come, like one day we had Take That Cat come, and we took them round and showed them their records being picked and packed and sent out and all that. And for an artist, it was great fun to do. But I honestly, because I always loved music anyway, and I honestly couldn't believe that they paid me to do it. It was like, hey, I'd just sit on the phone all day long talking to record stores and enjoying myself. And it was like talking to like-minded people, and you'd go on to your stuff. I mean, in the early days, one of the things that did get me was like, it was a major label, and there was so much good stuff that never got anywhere or never did anything. And at first, it was quite heartbreaking as a music fan rather than an artist. It was quite heartbreaking because I'd get the new releases in and I'd play them in the office. This was afterwards, I became manager of the department after a couple of years, probably because if you love something and you're good at it, then it all comes through. It goes hand in hand, doesn't it? So when I came to manage it, and we'd get records in, and we'd all go potty like for one, and we'd be playing it over and over again, and then it'd do nothing. And then it was like, we used to have another thing that we called the chairman's wife. You'd have some piece of rubbish that would land on your desk, and then you'd hear the chairman's wife loved it, so you'd got to push it even harder. And
oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
There were all those kinds of things. But, I mean, I think the industry as a whole was great fun back then. And as I say, I think because I loved it so much, that's probably how come I got to get further and further into it, till eventually RCA was bought up first by BMG, and then Sony acquired it. And I was with them the whole time. So there were more companies in between as well. But during my time, I think we saw more like titles. Like when I was actually on the phones, at first we'd go, RCA, can I help you? Then we became RCA Areola, and there were like all these different things and the acquisitions and that. But eventually Sony got it, and they've still got it now. So.
Okay, well, that's so interesting. Okay, so you mentioned there, Denise, about being a music fan. And, that's what gets us all into this business in one way or another, right? Through whether it's working for a label or a publisher or as a booking agent or as a music creator or whatever. We start out as music fans. We hopefully remain music fans. But at some point along the line, usually early-ish on, it starts to get a bit more kind of serious. And you start to develop and sharpen your skill set and your understanding of the wider context of the business. At what point, following on from that, did it start to feel to you like, wow, this is a career now? Was there something in particular that happened, or was it just something that happened organically?
I think it was more organic. First I was on the phones, then they made me supervisor, then manager, and then the next promotion for that couldn't stay in West Bromwich. I had to then go to London. And I think because I never made the actual move, I used to go to London on a Monday morning and come back on Thursday night and work from home on Friday. So because I never actually physically made the move, I stayed in a hotel all week. I used to come back to normal people, and I didn't mix, I suppose, weekends and things with other record business people. So I never got blasé about it, because everybody, all of my friends who had got very regular jobs and that, they were like, oh, wow, you're so lucky. You go to London, you meet artists, you do this, you do that. And it was like, so I don't think, like, it was like you'd be on, I don't know, the Day of the Brits or something, and there'd be people going, oh, I've got to go to that tonight, or what I'd do to get out of it. And I'd be so excited. I could barely breathe. It was it's like, and to be quite honest, probably the people going, oh, I've got to go tonight, were probably as excited as me, but they wanted to look all uber cool, and they wanted. Okay. It was like, because I think back then as well, I suppose because I was the Brummie in town, and they were cooler Londoners, and I think like I struck up a friendship with Simon Cowell. Oh yes. Back then, this was when I first went to London, and Simon, he said he liked me because if he'd play a track in a sales meeting or whatever, I'd be like, oh wow, I love that, or not, but everyone else would sit there being, yeah, okay, yeah, because nobody wanted to commit. Nobody wanted to say in front of the group, oh, I love that, and then it went on to be a failure and you're so wrong. And then the one that you say you don't like ends up being the biggest record of the year, and you look... No one wanted to look stupid, but I wasn't afraid of that. If I was enthusiastic, it all came out. And I think that was the excitement of like, oh, wow, this is it, and it was kind of, it was like another world, and I just loved it, and I loved the atmosphere. I mean, it's a lot different now if you're going to a record label, because everybody's sitting there in their little headphones, and they're kind of experiencing the music that way. Back then, we all had offices, we had our doors open, we'd blast the music out, and half the time you knew what was going to be a hit by the amount of people that came running in going, oh my God, what's that? It really? Wow. Okay. Yeah, and it was like sometimes you'd be playing things and nobody would pay any attention, and then another time that, like you've got half the building rushing in going, what the heck, and
Crikey. So much more kind of community related kind of level of thinking, which, okay, that's it. So going back to that particular time then, so you were, obviously you were friends and colleagues with Simon Cowell long before he was known on television as kind of like this bad guy kind of character and whatnot. What was he like to work with? He must have been a real hard worker, I guess, at that time, real kind of making his name for himself and that kind of thing.
Well, funny enough, he wasn't particularly. He used to roll in the office about 11 o'clock, which is probably not a good thing to say when I was saying that. When he did, but then I don't know if he had to stay till midnight. He would, So I suppose he wasn't a morning person. Put it that way.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
He wasn't a good morning person, but he was absolutely brilliant to work with. He was, and in terms of which is where he's sort of part of his path, I suppose, because Simon was the one. Like I was doing sales, so I had to present our tracks to, the likes that half of your listeners probably wouldn't remember, Woolworths and Our Price and HMV still going, I know. But I used to then present to the what they called the national accounts. And Simon knew that he couldn't just give me a good record and say, go out and get that. It had to have a plot to go with it. And back then, the plot was usually TV related. And so Simon thought out of the box. He wasn't like other A&R people, the way his head went. It's like, he used to always say to me then, well, why would you make a fantastic record when the only people that get to hear it are your friends and family at a dinner party or whatever, when you're going, hey, look at me, look what I've done this week. He said the general public, if they don't hear it, they won't buy it. And he was very much of that mentality, and he knew what tools he needed to give me to go out and sell his records, basically, which was a plot saying, it's on Ant Deck on Saturday morning, because, these days Ant Deck are the biggest Saturday night programme, but back then they had the biggest morning programmes because it was all about Saturday morning TV if you were doing a pop record. And it was like, so that's what you would be out to deliver. And then of course, like we had Top of the Pops back then, which that was, and it's very, very sad that there's not something, and I mean, I'm not sure the TikTok and things are the same, but Top of the Pops, you could have a record go in the chart at 27 or something. And if it was great and you managed to get that slot on Top of the Pops, it could go from 27 to number 7 or something by the actual chart. And so you used to know that was such a great vehicle. Now you don't know what the vehicle is. It's very strange, because even I think with most of the people I know who have gone on to become sort of big and successful on TikTok, most of them don't know what gets them there. It's like I've had a couple of my friends go, oh, we're loading this, going, this is going to go viral, that's going to go viral. And then the one that they put up that they don't expect, all of a sudden they've got, 20 million views on it. And they're going, well, where did that come from? That wasn't the one I predicted. It's like, I think, I mean, now we've got all those tools. We've got more tools to use, but it's kind of, most people don't know how to harness them anyway. And I must confess, I think the majority of people are like that. Most people either who are having a level of success on TikTok, or you've heard interviews with, like, they don't know where it came from. They're like, oh, I just uploaded this track that all my friends said was good, and all of a sudden it went viral, and now look at me, I'm Olivia Rodriguez or whatever.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I interviewed a lot of people in preparation for the book about this particular, about the subject of like audience development for an artist, and it's almost like music is it's only a piece of how an artist connects with their audience through TikTok. And a lot of it is perhaps through other things such as lifestyle decisions, hobbies, values, shared interests, that kind of thing. And it's almost like not the music's the back seat, it's always the sort of constant subtext, but at the same time, it's only a piece of what is connecting to people, which, you know, is perhaps a shame in some ways, especially when the goal is to peddle music for artists, you know. But I guess that's just something that's shifted in recent times through social media.
I think it shifted. I think also people's attention span has got lower. It's like now I've very rarely, with any of my artists, very rarely put out a record that's more than 230, 240 minutes. It's like people don't want any longer, and then, you know, it's kind of, you know, I don't know where Bohemian Rhapsody would stand in this day and age.
No.
as a brand new track, because, you know, it's like one of the things I find, which I do a couple of these judging things, like there's a coffee morning one that they do, and they send you songwriter songs. They ask them to write about a topic, and it's like I very often find myself, because I try and be as honest as I can, I very often find myself telling them, look, don't be so self-indulgent. You know, you might want to hear this song go on for 8 minutes, but I lost it after the first 3. We have to work with what we've got, which is the things like TikTok and like Instagram and all that. But unfortunately, sometimes, and labels went through a point where they were, oh, this person's got 2 million followers on TikTok, let's sign them up for a record deal. And then they might get 2 million on TikTok, but you look at the Spotify and they've barely got 100, do you know, and it's not translating. And so I think people are doing things for the wrong reasons sometimes, do you know?
Yeah. Let's just go back a little bit. So at what point did being an artist manager become your route that started to then shift your career path into where you are now?
It was a bit of an accident in a way, because I left BMG, and at that point the compilation albums were really the thing going on at the time. So we'd done a few of those at BMG. It was in a way easy. We came up with the creative. We came up with the track listing, which of course we knew the labels and we knew the politics, so we knew what we could put on, because everyone thinks with a compilation you just throw on anything you want to and that's it. You can do that now with your playlists on Spotify, but you couldn't back then with albums that you were going to sell. And anyway, so we were doing these compilation albums, and then before I left BMG, we worked really closely with ITV, because I'd given Simon the idea for Robson and Jerome. So if people haven't heard of Robson and Jerome, then maybe they should Google it, because they actually had 2 of the biggest albums in the top 10 for the whole of the 90s. They sold millions and millions of units. And basically, Simon, when he saw that, and he saw what a TV, the song was the fastest selling single. The first single was the fastest selling single ever. It was off a TV show. And when Simon saw that, he said, we need to bring ITV in-house so that we don't have to suddenly jump on these things. We can control it a little bit. So he wanted me to run that aspect of the business. So consequently, I was working with ITV and I was having meetings with them 2 or 3 times a week, and I got really good relationships there. And anyway, we'd left, and they phoned me up. They said, we're making a TV talent show called Pop Stars Arrivals. And will you manage, we're doing a girl band and a boy band, will you manage the girl band that comes off it? And we said, yeah, sure. Now, that girl band happened to be Girls Aloud.
Yeah, I remember.
Which should be the end of the story. However, halfway through the series, Louis Walsh had decided, he was one of the judges, and he decided that, I think I'll take this girl band, like when they come out. And it was like, we'd actually put in, and the ITV didn't want that, which was why they approached us in the first place. They didn't want one of the judges but ending up being the management. But then Louis was in a strong position, and he was kind of rough riding over them, and it was like, it was all a bit difficult. We'd also spent a lot of time going to the studio, being with the girls, meeting the girls and seeing what was coming out. And anyway, it turns out that, which shows probably how much I know, but we sat after one of the meetings with the girls in the studio. I think they were recording the B-side to Sound of the Underground, and they put all 10 of the voices on to take off as when they got kicked out of the competition. So we were with the girls, and then afterwards we sat in a cafe just having a cup of coffee. And anyway, I said who my band would be. And anyway, those were the girls that seemed to be coming out. And so what we decided to do, because we'd put in a lot of effort anyway, and we'd kind of we'd invested so much time, we said, well, let's take these girls on, let's put a band together with them. And so we put this band together called Clear. And there'd been a show just before that called Pop Stars, where the runners-up, Liberty X, had ended up being actually long-term bigger than the winners. So consequently, we went with these girls. We got them a deal with Warner straight away, like literally immediately. ITV were very excited that we'd picked up these girls, so they were giving us mega support, and it was really, really good. But we kind of inherited these girls, and it was great, and it was kind of in a way it sort of coincided, because what would have been our core business, which was the compilations, was kind of dwindling anyway with the introduction of iTunes, and like, you know, people were talking about streaming then, although it wasn't a thing. It was like, it was a concept that we were all aware was going to happen at some stage. And anyway, Warner's, we had a single that went to 22 and a single that went to 23. And Warner's had spent £1 million at least, and they wanted top 10 records, so they ended up dropping the girls. We negotiated to get the album, because the album was fantastic. The strings had been recorded at Abbey Road. It was a very, very expensive, classy album. And anyway, so we got the album, we got the videos, and we went and licensed it to 22 countries around the world, which for us was a brilliant learning curve, because we'd been at record labels, and when you, like, both myself and Simon, my business partner, he was head of marketing at Arista, I was sales, and so you're in your little boxes, and all of a sudden we're doing this management role, but we're doing international, we're doing like our own radio plugin, we're doing everything, and the girls, like, you know, they ended up having a 7-year career. And funny enough, they reformed again last year for Mighty Hoopla.
Really?
They did the one show. It was fantastic. I was like so full up. The girl band were Clear, by the way, CLEA.
Clear, okay,
which if you found the album Identity Crisis, the tracks are so classy. It's like, you know.
Wow.
So then that's how we kind of got into management, and then because we got our foot in the ITV door, then they approached us with Journey South, because they'd started the X Factor by then, and Journey South came third, I think, in the second series. and they approached us because apparently they were Simon's favourites. They were on Simon's team, but Simon absolutely adored them. And Simon had told his team to get them somebody good. And when my name came up, he was like, yes. So we did them. And then funny enough, Karen Harding, who we manage today, her manager had brought on the Journey South tour for Karen for Nuvrat, and he wanted to put Karen on in the northeast because she's from Newcastle. He wanted to put her on there, so we put her on 3 shows. And anyway, so then I got to know Karen as a person long before. So my managing her ended up being, you know, we were friends. She'd call me if she needed some advice, and it was like, you know, so there was a trust thing there before we'd even started, you know, which was good.
Wow. So in a way, you know, your route into becoming an artist manager was as organic as your route, you know, back in 82 in West Brom in the call centre, where you kind of organically climbed through that, being a music fan, understanding what was going on around you, building an even bigger understanding of where it all fits, getting your own ideas as to how you put it all together. And you're still managing Karen Harding now, aren't you?
Yeah, we've, I mean, Karen's 32? I've known her since she was 16. And it's like, you know, we just have a really good relationship. In some respects, she treats her like a daughter, because I feel like, you know, now she's got 2 babies and that, I get really excited around the kids and buy them Easter eggs and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so nice. You are so lovely, Denise. That's nice.
Oh, you out lovely me, Johnny. The nicest man in the business.
Oh, bless you.
But no, I think to be honest, for artist management, I would say, I mean, we never, and some people think it's stupid, some people, you know, but we never sign an artist when we first take them on. We never sign a deal. We talk to them. There's an email saying what we'd expect, and, you know, kind of the setting out the parameters, I suppose. But we never bring the lawyers in. I mean, with Karen, the first time we brought lawyers in was when we were signing her record deal. We'd been managing her then for about 2.5 years. And it was like when you bring in a kind of third party into the relationship, i.e. a record label and publishers and God knows what else, then I think then it becomes necessary that you've got to protect not just yourself, protect all parties. But I would much prefer to get a relationship with an artist before I sign anything on paper. You don't know, you know. We recently worked with another girl, and one-on-one, she was the nicest girl in the world, really, really lovely. But you have different ways of working, and you kind of. It's quite funny because, like with Karen, because we know her so well, we kind of go almost into auto drive. And, you know, if we've got issues and Simon and I are banging on a manager of someone she's working with saying, oh, can we see the results of this? And then we'll go to Karen and go, look, you know, we've banged on at the management loads of times. Could you send a direct message to the artist? And, you know, it's kind of, we work together to get the result. And, you know, unless you do that, because I think sometimes artists, and it's got to be a lesson. They've got to learn to do things all for themselves. They have to. Because if they sign a management deal or even a record deal for that, and they think, oh, that's it, I'm made, they're far from it. And it's like any relationship, everybody has to work at their bit. And if they're not, it's not going to work generally. It's just not. And you've got to have respect for each other as well, and it's hard, but that's why I prefer with the management. We took on more producers over lockdown, which was the first time ever that we've managed people that we hadn't even met, apart from on Zoom or whatever. Well, I've never done that because I've always been a big person for relationships. I sit in a room with you and it gels or it doesn't. Do you know? It's and if it doesn't, you know, it's kind of it's quite funny. You've had people, and we were approached by an artist that would have been kind of instant income because he was the singer of a band that was well established, well respected, and everything. And anyway, and then we ended up having 3 or 4 meetings. One of them was a label meeting, and I just sat there. I thought I can't work with this person, and nice enough guy, but because of the level of success he'd had already, he got no hunger. He got and it's like, well, actually, if you're just going to kind of drift through, he's like, you know, we were being asked by the label, you know, when are you expecting to deliver the album? And he's like, oh, release schedules, they're just something that people put out there and they can be moved and moved, so why put one in? And I'm like, what?
Okay.
and you kind of reach a conclusion. So I think in the first place, the management, you know, it's got to be, you've got to feel what they're feeling, and you know, you've got to believe in the music and believe in the person or the people if it's a group, you know, a collective.
Oh, well, and that's why you're so ruddy bloody good at it, Denise. So good for you. I like that philosophy.
You're such a charmer.
Oh, you know me. What? 2 questions now to finish off. 2 questions about emerging artists. What can? This is a big question, right? So just whatever you feel like is the right answer right now, you know, what can emerging artists do to enhance their chances of success?
It's quite a hard, open-ended question, isn't it? Because
it's a very unfair question because it's a massive question. There's a lot to it.
I think they need to. The big thing I always say to everyone is be discoverable. Be discoverable, be relatable, because I know there's a lot of artists, a lot of mine are guilty of it as well. It's kind of they think the only time they should put out any Instagram posts or TikToks or whatever is when they're releasing. All that looks then to their followers is that they just want to plug, and you know, they only talk to them when they've got something to sell. It's wrong. Do personality things, make you discoverable as well as your music, and then, you know, it's I know it's hard because a lot of artists are quite introverted anyway, but there's that old saying, if you're not on the pitch you won't play the game, and you have to be in the pitch, and there's many things, even do what makes you comfortable. You know, it's like if you're not fun and you're not a barrel of laughs, don't try and be that. Put out an honest little piece or an honest statement or something that shows who you are, so that people, the fans that are buying into you, can recognise it. But I always say about be discoverable. If you can release music, release it frequently at the beginning. Try and look for people who might be good collaborators, because then you're doubling your chances and you're boosting your release radars and all of that. Support each other as artists. Do you know, they're not competition. It's all like you see things. I think great example of that was Eminem, and he had what was that collective? He'd done a couple of tracks with them, but basically they made this
D12 or
It was D12, wasn't it? Well, they made a pact before any of them had made it that whichever one did, they bring the other with them, and it's kind of, I think everyone, other artists feel afraid to support their peers. It's they've got to do it. They've got to. It's kind of. It's essential because, some of your fans go and follow another artist. That doesn't mean that they've gone off you, or, it's like you don't listen to just one person constantly.
No.
Unless, of course, you're a Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah. And even then, Spotify's going to suggest other things that are similar anyway, right? So,
Yeah, but I think be discoverable is the big thing. And, kind of, you can make the best record in the world, but if it's just sitting on a hard drive in your bedroom, it's a waste of time, isn't it?
Be discoverable. I love that. Final question, Denise, is, and let's think about this the question is, what are the biggest mistakes that you see artists making? Now, there's a few different interpretations there. It could be kind of soft skill stuff. So, for example, people not maybe managing their time as effectively as they could be, or people saying the wrong things, or, something like that. Or it could be more on a sort of creative level or a technical level. What are the most common things that you think, oh, don't do that? What springs to mind?
I think big things for me, like when they're trying to please the wrong people. I think artists are naturally, artists and creatives are naturally quite introverted. They tend to, you're out there looking for approval, aren't you, basically? And I think every artist I know, and this is kind of probably without exception, is that if they upload something on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever, and they can have 100 lovely comments and they get one comment that's not nice, and that's the one that they home in on, and that's the person they want to please. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's kind of, if someone's saying, oh no, your voice is too whatever, too shrill or too high or too, everyone's got an opinion, but that one person isn't right. So be yourself, be who you are and who you feel comfortable with, and the skin that you're comfortable in, because it's the best one for you. And I think other mistakes, I think one thing I always drilled into to my people from everything, from when I had the girl band at the very, very beginning, is if they're doing stuff, if they're doing like an interview or, they're going to radio, they're doing stuff, be nice the whole time, not just when the microphone's turned on.
Yeah.
It's like, you walk into a reception, that receptionist is probably the most important person in the place. Don't think, oh, she's just a receptionist. Be nice to everyone you meet in there. Be nice to the cleaner, be nice to the receptionist, be nice to whoever's fetching you a cup of coffee while you're waiting for your interview. It doesn't hurt. And it just is, if you just switch it on the minute the mic goes on, then everybody knows it's fake. They've all seen it firsthand. And it's kind of, going back to Simon Cowell on this, that was one thing Simon was like, he treated, and we were at BMG, we were in next door offices at one point. He treated the cleaner with the same respect as he did the chairman of BMG. And I always loved that about him. And I think it's a quality, because it's like, it's nerve-wracking for artists as well to go in. So if they've warmed up the crowd, if you like, on the way in, then they're halfway there anyway. It's not just a question of being nice, it's a question of feeling more comfortable the second they sit down as well. And I think, it's kind of, and when you say about as well managing your time properly, most creatives are off on a tangent every 2 minutes. So if you know that you're not going to finish whatever you've been needing to do, whether, you're a producer mixing tracks or a vocalist that's got to lay something down, have a list and get it done, because it's like, creatives just go off in any direction. And I know, one of my producers actually, he could go 4 or 5 days and go, do you know what, Denise? I've done absolutely nothing, because every time I go to do something, I get distracted by something else. The distractions, especially when you're creative and you've got to do a track or you've got to write a song or you've got to do something, the distractions are quite welcome, because you don't want to put yourself there. But eventually you'll find that there's so many, it never ever gets done. And, you could be that person writing a song a day, but you don't know unless you put your mind and actually go for it. It's you're not going to do that just suddenly wandering off, flicking through TikToks or flicking through, it's...
Oh, God, absolutely.
It's not going to give you the inspiration.
No. That's a very good point. Oh, there's a lot of good values and good teachings here, Denise. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you.
I really do. Thank you. It's is there anything else you want to add, or I'm just mindful of time and your time and whatever else? And but is there anything else that you'd want to add to any thoughts or any sort of advice or anything like that?
No, I'd just say to artists to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else is going to. What people do want to hear you, they do want to know what you're doing, but you've got to believe that there's someone out there that wants it, and if you don't believe it, then it's never gonna work.
Okay, so really insightful, lovely talk there with Denise, where she was really open about how she almost really accidentally and organically slipped into being a manager, which is very interesting, because by the time that came around for her, she was clearly so prepared to be able to take on that role and just swim with it and do so well as she has done and is doing with it. It's just so interesting to hear that everyone's got their own story, right? Their own kind of step into the role that they have. And it's just interesting to hear where it came from, So anyway, final thought, because, there was many, many little golden nuggets in what Denise said there. But let's just roll back to this one. It's probably the most important thing.
I'd just say to artists to believe in yourself.
Let's just play that again.
To believe in yourself.
And there we have it. The most important message of all. It's so easy to lose sight of how important that notion is. Just self-belief. I know it's not easy, but it's possible, isn't it? Anyway, I won't get all preachy on you. I'm going to leave you for now. Thank you for being here for this. See you next time. May the force be with you.